Hi, everyone. It's Helen from SMB Deal Hunter. Today we have Ujwal Velagapudi with us, an entrepreneur who's acquired 10 SMBs. Very excited to hear Ujwal's story. Ujwal, it's great to have you.
Hey, thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, first, look, can you talk a little bit about your background and how you got into buying small businesses?
Yeah, really goes back to um, I would say probably my college days. I mean, I've been buying stuff and before businesses, and so that stuff is, I guess, really goes back to my high school days. Um, Going back to what I was buying and where I was buying, but I was buying, like I said, any stuff, anything on Craigslist. Craigslist was my domain, from gym equipment, shoes to my very first car. And so I was always on that platform and slowly kept buying cars for myself, buying and selling, just for my pleasure, not to flip or anything. And then one thing after another kind of stumbled across commercial real estate on Craigslist as well. And once I had a few of those under my belt, then I was in the wrong section on Craigslist one day and saw that there was a business for sale. And I was like, wait, I can buy a business, I can buy a pizza shop. That was my very first deal that I looked at. I went in um, and took a look at the pizza shop, and ever since then, been hooked on buying businesses.
Oh, that's so unique. I haven't heard, you're the first person I've heard who's bought a business off of Craigslist, which is really different. I love that. I guess what are some of the businesses now that you've bought, fast forward to today. And you started with the pizza shop. I'm curious, with that business, what did that process look like, buying your first business versus, what it's like today?
Yeah, so that pizza shop was my first actually site visit, and I didn't end up buying that. It took another year and a half, I think, to close my first business. There were quite a few in there that were broken deals, but I closed on a sports bar. That was my very first business, and um, I had a day job. I did everything myself. No employees that I inherited, no operations that I inherited. So making everything up from scratch. I've never drank in my life. I still haven't. So I knew nothing about pricing. What is a well drink? What's a happy hour drink special? Like I didn't know any of that. And so doing that from scratch, no experience, no nothing, going through the liquor license process, going through the contractors and renovating while I was taking um, doctor's visits or time out of lunch from my day job to go downtown and take care of some of these things. So that's what that process looked like, really learning everything from scratch to today. Um, I I mean, it's on the opposite side of the spectrum, or a slightly higher, I guess, in the full spectrum. Those were much smaller businesses to today, where they're slightly larger, a couple more zeros at the end. And right now, I'm really focusing on anything that is B2B, and really just cash flowing. I will purchase just about anything that's B2B cash flowing and at least 15 to 20 years old. A lot of stuff excite me. So I've bought in 6 different industries so far, and the weirder, the better. So one thing that I do right now, my latest business is in amusement vending. And so that just piqued my interest a few years ago, and one thing led to another. I bought one, and then now I bought 5 more, or 5 in total, and continue to buy. So yeah, for me, it's really the curiosity that drives my buying decisions, and then comes the financial aspects of it. But I just love to explore different opportunities, and I really don't have any professional drive or understanding of this world. It's literally started from Craigslist and buying something random, and now I am starting to learn more about the professional side of things and what a thesis means, what how to go about diligencing, how to actually dissect a deal. So, but it's been awesome learning from people in the community.
That's awesome. I guess with the first deal, the sports bar, what did diligence look like? How did you finance that deal? Um, what did that all look like, for your first business that you bought?
Yeah, it was. Um, so I paid cash at close. That was not my cash, but it was my cash, but it wasn't directly. It was borrowed cash, and so my first few deals were all cash. I want to say I think all my first 5 deals were cash, and had no financing. One had seller financing, but even that it was omitted or it was voided out. So it was all cash, but I can't remember which one I used at the time, but I was not paying my credit cards so that I could accrue more cash for my day job. So I was sitting on 18 to 24% APR. I use balance transfers. So for whatever reason, right after I graduated college, I maxed out my credit limits, thinking that was something cool. I didn't know what that really meant, but I maxed them out. So um, I would get these things in the mail saying, "Hey, you've got a 10K balance transfer, 15K balance transfer, 0% APR for 12 months, 18 months." So I tapped into those. Would get 10K here, 15K there, 15K there, and just started tapping into some of those. And of course, they're 0% to start, but then after their term ends, it's ballooned up to 18 to 24%. This is almost a decade ago, so rates were a tad higher than they are today. And um, also use P2P loans. So those are, if you've heard of companies called Upstart, SoFi, different companies out of the Bay back in the day, where it was investors on a platform lending to borrowers, and a lot of it in some of these companies were based off of your SAT score, your GPA, and your degree, and
Stop.
random stuff like that. And so I remember submitting my SAT scores and everything, and got like this 35 grand loan. They called it technically for student loan, but it was I want to say that was 18%. I think I took another one from SoFi or something, and that was like 24%. I mean, there were higher rates, shorter terms. So that's where I got my cash. And that allowed me the ease to be able to say, "Hey, I got cash," and be able to close with cash. The diligence on that was I had been looking to buy something in the I was looking to buy a club for almost a year. That deal fell through, and then I was looking to buy a bar for about 6 months. So I had been in the game and looking at a lot of different opportunities, failed opportunities. So I knew what to look for. And the second I flew back in for my day job. I was out in Europe, flew in. As soon as I landed from the airport, I went straight to the bar, looked at it, and said, "I want it." I had a purchase agreement within 4 days and earnest money deposit within 4 days, and we started working to close the deal. But it had a bar, had no food, which was great for me because I didn't want to deal with a low margin item like food. And it was right next to one of our NHL arenas, and it was basically a loaner, meaning they were going to raise the arena and relocate. So I knew that this was basically I'm buying it on a rental basis. I knew the business would be diminished after about a year, and so I got a great discount on it, and I basically used it as that a learning opportunity. Let me get in, understand, and then if I can make some money off it, great. And worst case, I can resell it for the assets alone, the liquor license alone, and so that was kind of my thought process. And it came with good assets. Bought it from a former hockey player. Had a good name, and so that's really all the diligence I had. And I inherited 0 employees, nothing else that really came with it.
Wow. No, that's interesting. And why a bar? You said clubs and then bars. What attracted you to bars? And what were you mentioned some of the things you look for, but were there any other things, you were looking for when looking for these bar deals?
So my path really started. It was the pizza shop, then a Middle Eastern restaurant, then like And then those all really fell through. And it was just in that industry, it was the people that I didn't, as you can imagine, like there's not the best people in those industries. And it's working with older people. I was 22, 23, 23 at the time. And I was the one reading 40 pages of operating agreement. I was the one renegotiating the purchase agreement. Uh, the purchase agreement was garbage. The terms were terrible. The, the revenues were declining. It was really profitable, but I mean, all these things. And yeah, I'm putting in cash, like six figures of cash that, by the way, I borrowed at 18% APR. So, and I'm getting less equity than this 40-year-old dude that put in 10 grand. I mean, so things were pissing me off. The ethical portion, it was just it was just not right. And so I looked at that and said, you know, I have five partners in this deal. It's a multi-million-dollar deal. I'm 23 years old. I know nothing about the liquor industry. I don't think I have a good feeling about trusting these guys. They were former millionaires. They're not anymore. Meaning, if you were that wild with your I know it was a great financial crisis, but if you weren't able to manage it during that time, I don't want to. I don't want to be partnering up with you on my venture. And so, so I just walked away from that, and that gave me a good opportunity because I really drilled down. I really dissected the industry from what I could. I really toured the country and visiting a lot of places and trying to understand, tour the city, and really met with a lot of operators to understand how to operate to the best extent that I could. And so I knew I just wanted a small little neighborhood bar. And when I saw this, I was like, this is perfect. It's feasible with my day job because that I wasn't willing to let go just at that point. So it was the perfect opportunity for me to be able to dip my toes in, dive full force, but at the same time, still manage my day job.
Yeah, and what happened after that year? Do you still own this sports bar?
I don't know. So I sold it about a year and a half later, and to an EB5 investor, and um, yeah, basically just sold it for the assets and liquor license, and I was able to make a couple bucks on the actual sale of the assets, but OpEx, I lost some money. I just put too much into renovation and operating expenses. I just lost a couple bucks, but net, I did lose a few bucks. But again, that's something that I projected for and planned for. So I really, I knew that I was going to lose a few bucks or make a couple dollars, and that's exactly what happened. So.
Got it. And how did that sort of experience inform sort of the next deal you pursued? And what were the next couple of deals that you did after the sports bar?
It was a gym off of Craigslist. It was a franchise gym, and I did it simultaneously to the bar. And so I was like, okay, I bought this bar. I've gone through a lot of commercial real estate transactions, and I've closed this bar and had a lot of failed business deals. Let me, you know, I was on Craigslist one day as I was back then, and just said, you know what? I looked at this deal, I looked at this gym, and it used to be a lot more last year, and all of a sudden it's like a third of the price. And it turns out there was an LA Fitness that opened up next door and crushed sales. So I went in and negotiated with the private equity company that owned the the corporate locations and said, hey, let me parse this off. It's much better to be a franchise led store than a corporate led store because they just were, a few states over, not really managing it to the fullest extent. So I gave them a full reason for why I'm the best buyer, why I know the lay of the land, and I would, be able to generate them the best royalties for their take, and ended up buying that. And it came with a manager in place, some staff, and was able to take that. And um, that was one of my favorite businesses as well, just because unlike a bar, a gym, I used to personal train, not officially, but back in college, and I had some context to like a personal affiliation with that business, as opposed to the bar. I just was pretty out of place for most of the part. Um, and then from there, I bought a small e-commerce business an FBA store at about 800 SKUs selling women's hats, gloves, and mostly hats. Um, and then that's when I quit my day job after that third business and said, you know what, let me go full time into just scaling out my businesses.
And how many years, I guess we didn't cover, what was your day job and, how long after you started buying businesses did you end up quitting?
My day job was in aerospace and then slowly transitioned to automotive because I'm from Detroit in purchasing. So I was purchasing material that my company would manufacture and sell to the OEMs. So that was my day job. And I worked for three companies over the span of 5 years. And that's when I quit on my like basically 50th year anniversary. And I was 26 at the time and just felt like I didn't need to do any of that anymore. And I had sold the bar, but I still had the gym, um, the e-commerce business, and my real estate portfolio at the time. And so I had three income streams, and that gave me enough confidence to say, you know what, let me walk away from the job.
Wow. And then what did it look like in terms of how you allocated your time to, I guess the bar initially, then the gym, then the e-commerce business, you had some of these all at the same time, still working your W-2. What was your
Yeah.
schedule like?
So early on, it was a little bit more crazy. So for example, the bar, again, I knew nothing about any of this stuff. So I was really efficient in that I was utilizing a lot of my employer's time to do a lot of the work for the businesses. So liquor license stuff, it's all paperwork, it's all digital. So I was doing it at work, you know, talking to my tenants or screening or this, that, ads during work. Or I would go take a bathroom break or a dentist visit or this and that and just make use of my time or make use of their time. And then my gym as well that came with a manager in place, which was nice. But I would, for all of these businesses, I would go in after work. So, for example, the bar, I work, I'm a bare minimum guy. So I left at 5, would go to the bar, open that up, and stay till midnight, 2 o'clock, whenever, and then close it down and then go back to the office in the morning. And that was for the first few months. And especially when the contractor was there trying to renovate the place, I would have to go during the day, during lunch, during take a couple of days off, or just go in the evening and really stay with them to make sure that it was completed. And then afterwards, my manager was able to take that over. For the gym, same thing. It was I was doing a lot of renovations, so I would go in after work, stay on the weekends, do things during the weekday evenings, and really just have oversight of that. So I would really understand the business for the first, in those cases, about the first 3 months, and then really hand those things off. And because even back then, I knew, I mean, my job was the primary income source for me. I couldn't lose that. And I was lazy. And so I, lazy plus I needed to be able to accommodate for both. And then, oh, I still had the real estate. So I needed to accommodate for all these things. And so I needed to be able to make it work. And so I needed to get out of there as soon as possible, hand those things off, and have the operations in a stable enough place to walk away. And I was able to do those at the time. And I remember a couple months before quitting, I still remember the feeling of coming home every single day and at 5 o'clock, bored out of my mind. And I just hated it. I was coming home after the gym. I just had nothing to do. My real estate's there, all good. The gym is good. The e-commerce being managed. I mean, I just had nothing to do. And so it was, yeah, I was just bored out of my mind. So at that point, because of what I had to do, even those types of retail businesses, I was able to get them streamlined to the point where I could walk away and still have a day job.
I mean, that's amazing that you're able to sort of like outsource the management and the day-to-day of the job, of these multiple businesses at the same time. At what point did you start shifting out of retail? And I guess you brought up e-commerce, what were the next couple of deals? Did you end up staying away from retail afterwards? Or you mentioned now you're more B2B. How did that whole shift happen?
Yeah, so I quit my job and then said, I'm gonna retire for a couple years and just go to Asia. So I was chilling in Thailand, and about a week in, I hated it. And sitting there on the beach, like literally 10 feet from the water, my bed is staring out, and on my laptop working like 4 or 5 hours a week, and I absolutely hated it. And because I got over that honeymoon phase, and that was only a week. I can't do this, and I'm just like itching to go back. And long story short, I tried to get back to America, or I got back to America. I canceled the trip and left early, just after a couple months in Asia, and tried to get into the startup world. Couldn't get back, or couldn't get a single job. Um, I think almost 6 to 7 thousand applications in San Francisco, New York, and LA. Couldn't land a single job, and got rejected by even a gym for 45K in the Bay, which was not
That's
livable.
pretty crazy.
And I got rejected even as a gym owner. And from there, I said, you know what? Forget all this. I'm not attractive on paper. I'm gonna go back to doing what I know, which is buying a business. So I was sitting on Biz Buy Sell and landed on this consulting business, and eventually went into buying. I wasn't able to buy the whole thing out, so I eventually bought a minority stake in the deal and was the operator for that business. And that was B2B consulting, software consulting, implementation of software, insurance consulting software that my team had in their prior lives built, and that software got acquired by Oracle eventually. And this consulting division was what the former founder had started of the software. So the in-house expertise was immense. Oracle would come to us for all the development and some consulting work and all the implementations. So I did that, took that remote even pre-COVID, and we got hit pretty bad with corporate customers, enterprise customers just walking away during COVID, and even slightly before COVID as well. And after that, I bought a virtual assistant agency, and that was a much smaller deal. But I did that because after those first 4 deals, I was looking at it and saying, okay, I want to buy something else, but I don't, I haven't really had the greatest success rate. Like these deals, like a 1 year loaner, I lost a couple bucks here, I lost a couple bucks there. This business took a hit. Like, am I really good at this? Like, am I doing this right? Do I know what I'm doing? And I've got a lot of scars, but am I actually making money? And so I bought that small deal, the virtual assistant business, because it was more of a way for me to test this out. Could I actually take a hypothesis and actually execute and learn this word called thesis? And I was like, okay, I'm going to go in with this thesis. I'm going to execute. I'm going to diligence, and can I do everything perfectly and actually take over the business? So that's exactly what I did. I wanted to buy something digital, something small, and end to end. Bought that thing in 6 days, closed. Beautiful deal, beautiful transition. Like everything was awesome, and so that gave me the confidence. I was like, okay, yeah, no, I got this. I know how to do this. Like I knew how to do it, but I just chose poorly. And so it was just about fine tuning and fine tuning and fine tuning after every acquisition, every mistake, every sale, and then now I've bought the vending businesses and continuing to look towards the B2B world.
And are you still running the small VA agency? Have you grown that since? Did you end up selling it? What did that look like?
I still have that. I still have that one. I sold the consulting business about a year and a half ago. I still have the VA business. Actually, just recently got a new operator for that. We scaled it got a great offer that was going to be like over a 50x return, and then
Wow.
it got crushed again. So, in the process of um, taking that back to a level where we think it can actually sustain, and um, yeah.
And what's your process? No, that's crazy story so far, but it seems like you've got a knack for, finding operators to run these businesses so you don't have to actually be as day to day. What's your sort of process for bringing like operator or GM on?
Yeah, honestly, I that's still like the one area, if I could say, like if I had, I think it's all about people and speaking to other people that have a holding company or just a lot of different simultaneous businesses. It's all about the people, and in my experience too, um, that's the toughest part for me. It, I think I'm just naturally, um, like I said before, just naturally really lazy and just really want to get it off my desk. And I know that I'm not the best fit for doing that type of work, and I want to be doing something else. And so, in this case, how am I finding them? I truly don't. I've never bought a business that needed like a CEO or, I mean, I'm not. I don't think any of these businesses in the small S&B world that are, for the most part, that are below, you know, 10, 15 million in valuation, um, really need anything more than a manager. A business manager is the most you really need. Pay them low end six figures, maybe a buck 50, couple hundred base, or maybe a little bit more at tops, and you're good. They can read the P&L, they can manage, they can lead. I really don't think it takes too much more than that. There's some exceptions and some nuances, but especially for the more industrial types of businesses, and that's really what I have done, is really finding somebody that can lead my team, can keep things super simple, but yet can speak to me directly and speak my language of, can we converse on KPIs? Can we converse on the back end sort of stuff to make sure that you and I are in alignment with our vision? And at the same time, could you speak and lead to the greater team overall? And it's honestly, it's been nothing crazy that I have done, but um, using things like, just in terms of hiring, just using the top rating methodology, using culture index, using a really drawn out but diligent hiring process, and trying to get them into our shoes, kind of showing them a day in the life of our business, no sugarcoating, sharing as much negative and real life raw stuff as possible. Um, and we really want them excited to join despite all of that of, hey, this is our current state today. We want to get to future state here tomorrow, but this is how it is today, and it's on you to help us get us there. And so, and one thing that has really helped is just speaking to me and sharing my vision. um, I don't think I'm a great leader or anything like that, but at the same time, anybody that you're bringing on to your team, I think always wants to know who's leading the thing, who's leading the ship, where are you going? And people have been drawn to my ambition and what I have done, but then also what I want to do and what I want to accomplish. And they're like, oh man, I really like what you said and sharing your vision and where we want to go. I want to help you do that. I'm an operator. Like, I like to be your operations manager, and I want to take it from here to there. You keep buying more companies. I'm a sales guy. I want to keep selling for you. Um, and so I think just that, just having that symbiotic relationship with all your people are has really helped me in sharing my vision, having them feed off of me, and just making sure that we're on the same page. But people management is certainly the toughest, and finding those really good people that can run things for you and that you truly trust is definitely the toughest.
No, I certainly agree with that. And I guess, curious, or have any of them moved around across across your portfolio, or have most of them sort of stayed where they are? Um, what did that look like?
Not yet, but that is a selling point, and I would love to be able to do that. So I would love to be able to. The opportunity's been there. The opportunities have been there, but and virtually, some people have, but in person, team members, not yet. And that is something that I'm really excited for. Hey, buy the next company that's completely in a different vertical. Hey, replace yourself and pop over there. I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah, that would be the dream. And I guess tell me more about the amusement vending business. Is this the sort of the biggest part of your portfolio now? Like, I don't actually even know what that means, so please share more.
Yeah. Yeah, so amusement vending, that is, if you think of jukeboxes, the claw machines that kids play, shooting games, racing games, uh, shooting hoops, any of those stuff, pool tables, ATM machines, it's the amusement vending industry. And so we provide the equipment to our customers, which can be bars, restaurants, movie theaters, gas stations, convenience stores, malls, um, hotels, resorts, place like that. And we do some sort of profit share with them. Or it's really not a lease, but we have been getting into more lease-based situations. But typically, the industry has been on a even revenues, even profit split after the fees and things that we incur. And so, um, yeah, it's not industry, but it's a capex heavy industry. We are renting you or profiting off of our capex and our equipment, and we take care of the servicing. We take care of the money collections. Um, we get lots of quarters, and so there has to be someone to empty out the equipment, a lot of dollar bills, to take those, count them, give the cut to the customer, take them back to the shop, recount it, have someone pick it up, deposit it into the bank. Um, Service wise, hey, we get customer calls in, hey, the photo booth at the movie theater is down. Okay, we got to go in, either try and troubleshoot it digitally or go in person, check it out, make sure it's working. Oh, there's a kid that stuck a piece of gum up the bill dispenser, and you got to go clear that out, clean that up, stuff like that. And so we get those calls. Our team is dispatched. They take care of the service call. Um, and then operationally, there's always new locations. Locations close. Uh, Locations want different equipment, so we're playing a little bit of a musical chairs, rotating some of the equipment so that they stay fresher to that existing customer. Um,
And what does your
yeah.
team look like to manage all of this? Do you have full-time folks sort of on the ground dealing with, fixing these issues? Or you kind of mentioned, you've bought businesses across 4 states. Is this one where you have clients across multiple states? What does that look like?
Yeah, so this one is in one state for right now, and as we expand, definitely want to expand into more states. But this is something that is more of a boots on the ground sort of business, and you do need your local team. Whether it's, I mean, it could be you or it can be divvied out to somebody else. But with the cash element, it really, unless everything is fully digitized, it really does need to be a local team. And so for us, we're local. We have our guys that are taking care of the things from collections, sales calls, servicing, all of that. And so we have our two business managers that run the operations, and then everybody underneath them. And that can be anywhere from leading the service team, running the ATMs, running the collections, the back office administrative side of things. And so everybody really works together in order to execute on all of those.
Got it. And you said I guess you bought the first sort of route, if you will. Is that correct? And you just kind
Correct.
of kept
Yep.
buying more. Yeah, no, I interviewed Mitchell Sorkin, a couple weeks or maybe a month or two ago. And he also mentioned, because he bought, I guess, over 800 ATM machines. And now, I think with one of his deals, it came with some jukeboxes, and he's also really excited about the space. So no, that's really exciting. And are you able to find a lot of these deals? Like, are they pretty hard to come by? Finding folks that already have an existing route of these, I guess, amusement vending machines?
Yeah, it's they're not going to be brokered. Um, they're not going to be out there, and it's really word of mouth, and it's really knowing the people in the room. Um, like I went to an industry event a few weeks ago, and people like I stick out like a sore thumb. I'm half their age and not white, and bam, it's like you're that guy, right? You're the new guy, and people certainly remember me. So that is definitely very, very helpful in being able to get a little bit more attention. Plus, doing things the right way, doing things in a new way, respecting the past, yet advancing towards the future. I think is huge. I really do respect everybody that I had bought from, my peers in the industry nationwide, and learning from them, learning from my customers, learning from my vendors. But at the same time, I know that we have to not live in the past and progress decades forward. So, what can I bring from other industries or other experiences or other peers that nobody else in the industry is doing?
Yeah.
And that's exciting. And with that, just really networking with all these guys has brought on a lot of opportunities, and people seeing what I've been doing. They've been attracted out of state, lots of people across the country, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting industry. It's it's one that I think is certainly on the decline, and it's one that you have to um, in a macro, I think it's on decline. So you have to play to it in the right way to make sure that marginally you are increasing. And so we've got our playbook of why it makes sense, but 99.9% of the people, it's not going to ever make sense, and it's just not a good industry to get into.
No, that's super interesting. I guess a couple questions, well, what are some of the examples of, changes you've made that, have been different from maybe older owners of machines in the space?
Um, so, couple things: website, Google Sheets as opposed to paper. So bare bone basics. Um, Cash, and what I mean by that, counting it specifically. So one of my very first trainings in person was, "Hey, Ujwal, go and count this cash." And I would always get told like, "Hey, I hate," from the previous seller, like, "I would hate counting cash." I'm like, "Yeah, first world problems, first people problems, right? You hate counting cash." He's just like, "It's the dirtiest thing in the world." I'm like, "Sure." And day one, I go and do it. I got black hands by the end of it.
Wow.
Just a couple hours. It's literally dirty, and you are counting quarters, dollar bills, and it's disgusting. And outside of that, it took hours with a bill counter, with a money counter, weighing it, all those things. You're just literally counting. And instead of that, we have meters on the machines to verify things. And I said, I'm not doing this. Have the team do it. The team is counting it. And then finally, when we have an armored vehicle come pick up the monies, they again count it, and we verify on each and every level to make sure that whatever is deposited into our bank account is actually reconciled at every step of the way. And so that used to be anywhere from a 20 to 30 hour time suck every single week, completely eliminated for 800 bucks that we pay our vehicle service. And so that was one big one. And then accounting. So I got an accountant as opposed to doing a desktop version of of a free trial of QuickBooks, which was what was in place before. And so, I mean, just minor tweaks like that. Just, I mean, those are the bare minimums. And then a few other things, looking at the things that were actually losing money in the business, which there were a few, and completely axing those or raising prices to make sure that as a whole it was very profitable, but in micro little divisions or product lines or certain services, we were bleeding. And so just making sure that we stop doing those or we increase the rates to make sure that we're actually in the black. Yeah, just a whole lot of changes that we've implemented. Culture is a huge one. I mean, yeah, just so many different things that when I actually look back on it, we have done so many things, and we're still dropping the ball every day on, you know, customer service, growth, this, that, everything. But I think as an aggregate, and it's been a significant net positive for what we've been able to do. We're just continuously trying to get better.
Yeah, no, I think I always hear like the 1% better every day. And it sounds like you guys just,
Yeah.
implemented a lot of small things that, all really added up. So that's very exciting. I guess, you kind of brought up, the industry as a whole being on the decline at a macro level. Why does it make sense, I guess, for you guys to still be in it? What's your thesis behind this?
Yeah. Um, and a buddy actually mentioned this, and I heard it on someone else say it after the fact and kind of validated. Uh, and you can tell me your thoughts on it. But so I didn't know that it was declining until after I got into it. So if anyone's listening, just a disclaimer, it's not all rosy. But is it profitable? Absolutely. But ATM business, personally, I don't think it's going to exist. That's a good chunk of what we do. Cash, um, that's I think it's just going to be obsolete. We have to digitize everything. Um, so a lot of these products, they survive off the quarters, the cash aspect of things. Um, the owners, it'll take a minute, but they need to eventually phase out, whether it's actual death or succession or a sale of their businesses, because they are not willing and allowing us to digitize. For example, people love their cash and they want to avoid taxes, and so they want things to stay cash. They won't allow us to even digitize the equipment, and so I mean, little things like that. To um, you can think about the kids these days having their iPhone, iPad. Um, Back in the day, it was even Game Boys and things, but now it's just going to a physical piece of equipment that costs, or I'll get into that later, but just going into a physical piece of equipment and playing, that's, a little bit dated. It's a little bit, I think, less done these days than at least back when I was growing up, and I'm sure decades ago. And one of the biggest aspects is the actual net ROI. So, for example, this industry is certainly declining with the lack of people in terms of people like me that are operating it, the vendors, and primarily the industry that is not supporting people in my very niche subset of what we do. Most of the equipment is being geared towards the family entertainment centers, the FEC industry, which are your Dave and Buster's, Chuck E. Cheese's of the world, those type of actual arcade rooms. They have, anywhere from $1 million to $5-10 million worth of capex and games in their facility, and they've gotten extravagant to escape rooms, go karts, axe throwing, all those sort of fun stuff. For us, we're sticking on a jukebox, arcade game, golden tee, claw machine, an ATM or something, a pool table. Bam! It's like less than 50 grand for a typical starter kit setup. Whereas for them, it's completely different. We don't have the luxury of space in a bar or the capex that we can afford to stick in a $25,000 single piece of driving game that is going to make what, $2 a pop. So simple economics, the way I would run it is a basketball game costs 10 grand, let's say, and you're charging a buck a play. It's going to take you on gross 10,000 plays to break even. But wait, we're not even counting the split because you have to share that 50-50 with the customer and me. So now you're talking about 20,000 plays. And then we break even. But wait, that's not even counting in the service calls, the collections, the number of like amount of wear and tear that goes in after playing it for 20,000 times. So the balls, the parts, this, that. So to even get some sort of ROI on it, I mean, you're talking about an insane number of plays. Even if it was $2 a pop, $3 a pop, it's still an immense amount where it only makes sense in very limited number of locations. And so the ROI is finite depending on the location. And the number of locations just aren't there anymore. And the revenue and the desire for some of these games has been decreasing. And so I don't think many people want to actually see it or will own up to it. In the industry, I've heard it from vendors. People are still flirting with it and diving in, but I just personally don't see it. And I'm just going to be real with how I see it and even with our team. But why does it make sense for me? Well, I'm already in it. I'm already knee deep and I want to take over my entire market. So if I'm able to dictate market pricing and take over the entire market, I could demand it. I could provide the best service, at least in my little territory, and pricing wise, I can take care of that. But also, I think it makes sense in terms of friend said it the best way, where even in a slightly declining industry, if you can eke out higher and higher margins, you'll still be able to have a net positive. And that can be through acquisition, that can be through just customer acquisition, route acquisition, and levying more fees onto our customers as opposed to even splits. Can we have a higher threshold, higher minimum takes, different things like that, where ultimately our bottom line can actually increase as we're growing. And yeah, but so there's a few different reasons why I'm not super optimistic. Like I would not go raise any money to be aggregating this industry. I think that would be a terrible move, and I've turned down a ton of offers to do that. I'm very content with what I've got, and I can aggregate to, maybe low 8 figures in EBITDA, but it's not, I just don't have it in me to be able to say, hey, let's go obtain and acquire like 50 to 100 million in EBITDA and raise hundreds of millions of dollars for that. Would be foolish. And so I'm going about it very conservatively. And also on the flip side, my theory is I'm buying adjacent businesses to be able to cross sell products and services to what I already have and feed off of my entire book of business. So those are the few different ways why it really makes sense for me to continue doing it, as opposed to like a third party getting in or a fund or anybody else.
No, that's pretty convincing to me. That makes a lot of sense. I guess how are are you still on the lookout for more deals? Or how are you financing these transactions? I'm assuming different from, the start of your business buying career, but what does that look like now?
Yeah, it's there. I did use an SBA. I did use conventional, maxed those things out, or at least the SBA is maxed, and then seller notes, uh, private notes, and a lot of seller financing. And so, and then for new opportunities, I'm going about. It's really difficult in the small size of businesses that I'm looking at. I'll flirt with anything from mid 6 figures in enterprise value to a few million to high 7 figures. But it's very difficult to get financing in that world. But the good thing is that I am attracted to high or heavy capex businesses. So equipment loans, financing based off of AR if it's more of a digital asset or has that within its means. And then earnouts. I will not touch anything that doesn't have an earnout component. Or I've been flirting with sale leaseback opportunities, just different things that I can leverage where it really reduces um, my cash infusion, my risk, and I really have gotten a lot more conservative um, in terms of how I'm diligencing these because I'm just not super excited about the climate today, and so I'm just trying to be very conservative and kind of hold what I've got, but then aggressively looking, but putting down very aggressive conservative offers to a lot of these sellers.
That's no, that's super interesting. I guess in terms of, what other, you mentioned earlier on that you're buying other B2B businesses that are, have been around for a while. What other types of businesses are exciting to you now? Have you bought any of them? What's your goal now? I saw on Twitter you said, your goal is to hit, 1 million a month in free cash flow by 2025. Is that the goal still? Yeah, what does this all look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as that goal, it's still got what, 9 months left, so we'll see. It's gonna be a lofty one, but not anywhere near that level. Unfortunately, I wanted to be able to at least get to 1 million run rate at least by Jan of 25. I don't. We'll see. That has to be through acquisition, but and that's just an artificial goal. I just kind of made that number up. But for me, what excites me is really international opportunities and doing business and learning. And so, what really would get me excited, which I have slapped my wrist on numerous occasions to not do right now, but is to buy a company internationally. I've looked at Mexico, I've looked at India, I've looked at over in the UK, and just looking at different opportunities internationally that that would really drive me. And it's never been the financial. It's always been just the curiosity to actually want to learn. And I think one that encapsulates that the most is an international opportunity, especially in less in a more of a lawless environment, I guess. And I just think that America is such an easy place to do business in relative. We have the laws, we have the resources, we have the education, we have all those things at our disposal. But going to, where I'm from in India, like, things could be a lot more wild. Having worked in Mexico and lived there and being able to buy a business there, that would be awesome. But it's also a different world out there. And so but that excites me, is to be able to learn about different people and cultures, the regulatory side of things, the political side of things, how business works, how business dealings actually happen or don't happen. All that stuff is super exciting. And how can I come from this American mindset and go do business in those different environments, and especially a physical business? That would really be awesome. So that's really the next step. I have told myself I don't want to do that, or I shouldn't do that unless I'm willing to forego and lose every penny that I invest out there. So I don't think I'm quite there to be able to afford to do that yet. But in a couple of years, certainly want to test the waters on buying something internationally.
Oh, that's super exciting. You certainly love a challenge. Keep me posted on that. I'd love to
Yeah.
learn more. I guess, final two questions. I know I want to be sensitive of time, but is buying business everything you expected it to be, since leaving your job? What's your sort of take there?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's been definitely been like a hockey stick sort of growth where it was very difficult to leave. And I'll say a week after I left my job, I got an offer, a 30% salary bump, that my old manager called me and said, "Hey, want to hire you remote job before COVID even existed. Um, and I had to turn it down on principle because I told myself, you're quitting on principle to go full time into your business. You can't, for a few grand more, opt for something that's a short term financial gain. And so, on principle, I had to turn it down. That was one of the toughest decisions that I've had to make. But looking back, it was tough, 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 tough. But there was that exponential growth. And that was really a composite of the past decade of work that I put in and slowly starting to culminate right now. And I'm starting to see things starting to pick up. And I really feel this upcoming decade it's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, very, very excited for the next 10 years. I guess, any final words of wisdom for, especially for the first time buyers out there?
I mean, at least what's worked for me has been just getting out there and doing it. I was not, hopefully, you guys could pick up that I really didn't know any of this stuff when I started doing it. Knew none of the terminology, knew none of the words, but it was just kind of curiosity leading things and just figuring stuff out as I made it up and seeing peers that are a lot more analytical, a lot more intellectual. They kind of stop short of actually executing due to fear, just being too smart for their own good. And for me, what's worked really well was just being ignorant and just kind of, hey, let's just go do this. This sounds cool. This sounds fun. Let's just go and do it. And um, I'm still the same way. I'm still wired the same way. If there's some new cool, like an international company, I will go blindly and just say yes and just do it and figure it out. And for me, that's the fun part. That's the exciting part. It's not the financials. It's really just let's go figure this stuff out and have fun doing it.
No, this is all great advice. Well, look, Ujwal, thank you so much for your time today. Loved hearing your story and learning a little bit more. I guess for those out there who, want to reach out to you, where can people find you?
Yeah, the best way is going to be Twitter. LinkedIn, I really don't check much, but Twitter is going to be the best way. At Ujwal Velagapudi, my first name, last name, and just shoot me a DM or contact me that way, and that'll be the best way.
Yeah, and I'll link that as well. Well, look, thank you so much again. Really, really, really appreciate your time. Please let's stay in touch. And yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Alan.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks again.